Who's Scruffy-Looking?
Hello, all you Rathgars and Rhodians, to the Scruffy-Looking podcast, the show where we talk about all things related to that galaxy far, far away. My name's Dakota Hayden, and with me is my co-host and dad, Mark Hayden Jr. How's it going, Pops?
Good. How you doing today?
Doing well.
Good.
Doing well. First episode, you know.
Yeah.
We've been talking about doing a Star Wars related podcast for a while, so cool that we're finally sitting down and put it together and actually giving it a good old college try.
Yep. See where it goes.
Yeah. Okay, so since we're on the tail end of the Acolyte, I figured for the first episode, probably wanted to start talking about that. So, the Acolyte, I've seen online, there's been a lot of people that are for it and against it. I've seen more against it than for it. What are your initial thoughts on the Acolyte?
Wasn't quite what I was expecting, but reflecting back on all of it now, then I actually binged watched the whole thing together. It's a lot better watching it like a movie, watching it all at once than by each episode. Some things I really liked about it. The episode 5, the fighting in the show is incredible.
It's been really good.
I really enjoyed that. The thing with the twins really doesn't. It's okay. It doesn't really do anything for me. But just being in like another time period in live action than what we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
I really like that. But the stranger, I love that character.
He was a really good character.
One of my favorite new characters. I just thought he did a really good job. It was kind of predictable. I was guessing 2 people were going to be the stranger, and he was one of them. So it was kind of predictable, but he did such a good job with it that it was okay being predictable, I thought, because he just did an awesome job with it.
Yeah, played a really good character. I forget the actor's name, but he did really well, I thought. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned something about being in the different era of that we've seen. Like, we've been in the Skywalker saga, for lack of a better term. Well, I think that's the general term for it, for like ever. Mm-hmm. And barely have we had any content that gets outside of it. I wish the Acolyte would have taken place a little bit further before the Phantom Menace. Mm-hmm. Because if they're wanting to tell a story outside of the Skywalker saga, I figure, as long as Yoda is alive in the general timeline, you're probably somewhere in the Skywalker saga.
Right.
But I agree with you. The fighting was awesome, but just there was some tidbits, especially about the twins and stuff. It didn't really set or appeal to me too much. I don't think.
I almost feel like the flashback episode, which was episode 7, where they showed everything that happened with the witches.
Yeah.
Looking back at it now, they kind of built it as going to be like a murder mystery, but to me it was never there.
Yeah.
So to me, you could almost had that flashback episode just been episode 1 and showed you everything that happened, and kind of went from there, because really I get that he's trying to go for a mystery with it. There's when you first see May when she kills Indara, and then it flashes over to Osha, and you're like, oh, is that the girl that? But I mean, it was pretty obvious it wasn't. So I don't think it didn't quite work with me for the whole murder mystery aspect. I think they was going for.
Yeah, I think the way they. Like you said, like the setup could have been done a little bit differently to really nail it, but I almost wish they didn't reveal at the very beginning that they were twins. I think that would have set for it pretty well to keep us on edge, trying to figure it out ourselves, and then at the end reveal that they were twins. I feel like that would have played off a little bit better, but So the Acolyte kind of seemed to portray the Jedi as the bad guys. It's kind of what I got out of it. What did you think about that? Because, in Star Wars media, for me anyway, you got the Jedis as the good guys, Sith as the bad guys. You can have a little gray here and there. That makes for good, entertaining stories. But, they were definitely being shoehorned into being, not as good as you think they are.
Yeah, they... Seems like whenever we see the Jedi now, they're flawed. It would be neat to see a show or something cover a time period or where they're how I always imagined them all my life. These good heroic guys. Granted, people are human. You have flaws and stuff like that. It just seems like every time we see a group of them, whatever, oh, these are flawed. There's something wrong with them or something. Let's see them at the height of where like the galaxy's like really looking up to them, and they are those good guy, defenders of peace and justice.
Yeah, that would have been good to see, especially since in the prequels, so 1, 2, and 3, we got to see, while they were kind of like the pinnacle of peace and protection and justice for the galaxy, that's their arrogance is what had led to Palpatine coming into power, becoming this almighty Sith Lord, and then just kind of strike out and undercut him. So it would have been nice to see them more on it, for lack of a better term. But yeah, I feel like that's the case, like, everywhere. I mean, like, even going back as far as to The Last Jedi, how they portrayed Luke as kind of like a slightly flawed Jedi, but even though we were told throughout, like, Legends expansion and all that jazz, that he was kind of like this was the guy. Like, the Jedi were great, they fell off, and then Luke brought him back. So it's interesting to see. And that's another thing I didn't necessarily like about the Acolyte was they had good characters to some degree. But if you have the Jedi, it's kind of like these flawed individuals. So there's no black and white, there's gray on them. And then you're portraying the bad guys, the quote-unquote Sith, because they never really full out called him the Stranger Sith. But I think they're kind of alluding to he's trying to be a Sith Lord.
Yeah, well, I like how that kind of left it open. He said, a Jedi like you would call me or might call me a Sith, but he didn't say, I call myself a Sith. But, yeah, so that's open to interpretation there.
Yeah, but if you're led to, like, if they're supposed to be, if you portray the bad guys as justified, then I'm not sure really who I'm rooting for in a moral stance.
Yeah.
So that was kind of difficult for me for it. But they were cool. It was cool to follow them, but as far as that goes, I wasn't 100% sure. Yeah. But I don't know if that's a problem with me or the storytelling.
I kind of, my take on that is, even though they're evil, but it showed you how easy it was to become. I thought that was one thing I liked about the Stranger character, is like how they would mirror, like when he got a hold of Osha and she was in his custody, he fed her, he treated her, didn't treat her like a prisoner, really.
Yeah.
But then when Soul had realized May was who she was, he shackled her and everything, and kind of so it kind of flip-flopped. So I thought, certain aspects of that was kind of interesting to see how the Sith would, how they kind of play on stuff and make it, how they draw you in that way. So
yeah, I didn't think about it like that. That's an interesting. I like that. I like that take on it. So seeing a Wookiee Jedi for the first time was kind of cool.
Yes.
What did you think of Kelnaka?
Yeah, I love Kelnaka. Of course, the trailers kind of spoiled that he's going to see him fight at some point. But when May came across his body and he'd been killed, I was like, are we going to get ripped off of actually seeing him fight? And then I remembered the trailer, you saw him jumping, I think it was, towards the other Jedi there. So you knew there was going to be a flashback at some point. But I liked him. I just, one of those characters I would like to see more of, when the witches took control of his mind and all that whole fight scene. I thought that was really, really cool. Yeah, I thought they did a good job with him.
And especially with the character design, I thought it was pretty cool. So I liked that a lot. I couldn't remember, because I was trying to think back, how come we haven't seen a Wookiee Jedi until now? I can't remember. Did George Lucas say something to the effect of where they typically weren't Jedi? So
I think if I remember right, and it's been a while, at one point he's like, they can't be, like they weren't fully sentient or where they could become Jedi. And then he kind of eased up on that, and I can't remember now. It's been so many years. There was ended up being a Wookiee Jedi in a novel, I believe, where he kind of loosened up on that. And then you had I can't think of his name off the top of my head either, in the Clone Wars.
The Padawan.
Yeah, in the Clone Wars.
What's his name?
Yeah. Oh man, I really.
That's gonna bug me. I'm gonna have to look that up real quick.
I liked him, so I like the idea of it and stuff. But maybe make it where they're like you had mentioned, where it's not common. It's
Gungi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But make it where it's not very common for a Wookiee to become one. That makes them a little more special than there is one that.
For sure.
So,
big reveal of Darth Plagueis. Or Plagueis, however you pronounce it.
I always say Plagueis.
I always say Plagueis, but I've heard Plagueis a lot, so I'm gonna stick to Plagueis. If you people in the comments want to correct us, feel free. But
tomato.
Tomato. You all know who we're talking about. So I liked how they kept his appearance the same of what we know of him. He's a moon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad they kept that the same. Mm-hmm.
So. What are you thinking? Like, the first we're introduced to this guy, he's just kind of like a lurker in the caves, just kind of overwatching everything.
Yeah, I think if it does get a season 2, it's a good teaser. Same thing with Yoda at the end of that last episode too. It's something I've always wanted to see. That novel about him is one of my favorite Star Wars novels. I wish they'd just make it a series and just follow it, but yeah, I'm curious to see what maybe besides the stranger, he's got several apprentices out there that he's
kind of testing the waters with.
See who's Mm-hmm.
Which I think, didn't they allude to that in the book? Didn't he have like potentials, but then he settled on Palpatine to take under his wing?
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting to see. I wish they'd do that though. They've got so much good content since Disney bought Star Wars. It'd be nice if they just kind of took some of the old content and just brought it in.
Yeah, that's, at one point I heard him mention that, like with the Marvel stuff, they have old stories they can pull off of and use for movies, and they said they didn't have that for Star Wars, which I know other people have brought this up. It's like, yeah, you do. There's some really good stuff out there that you could just adapt and make a movie out of, or a series, and it would be great.
It seems like, especially with the technology nowadays, it seems like an easy cash grab, honestly, for lack of better terms. You got the story already there, just credit the people who wrote it, and just take it and adapt it to as much as you can. I don't know. I guess they're too busy telling their own stories, I suppose.
Nothing
wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Just have a nice mix of both.
Yeah. So, I was kind of sitting with this at the end of the series when we saw Yoda. I'm wondering what they're going to do with that if they get a season 2, because I don't necessarily like thinking of Yoda to be ignorant to something like that, especially since he's the top dog and just Jedi right now in this era. So, for him to not sense... Because I'm assuming Vernestra, as she came into that chamber room, she's going to lie to him and frame Sol up as the guy who took out all those Jedi. How would... I can't see him not sensing through that. You know what I mean?
That's be interesting to see where that goes. Maybe she will mention something about... I mean, that's what's just going to be curious where it goes now if they do another one or if they don't. Does she tell Yoda, hey, I had this apprentice and he fell, I think he's still alive, he's responsible, there's something more going on? Or does she kind of... just a lot of possibilities there. Or does she go in there and say, well, this happened to Sol, and kind of really outright lie about stuff, but is Yoda going to be able to read her, That's one thing in all of Star Wars is sometimes it's like, well, how come the Jedi or the Sith didn't sense this when it was like happening right in front? There's what I'm saying? There's always like little loopholes and stuff like that, and then it's well, they know this, then it kind of complicates or ruins the story, so we have to have them ignorant to this. But well, over in this case, this person could realize this. How come this one can't realize?
There's like a balance you have to go through with it. So that's... I can imagine that's difficult to keep up from a writing standpoint. And I guess you could turn it, since we're 100 years before the Phantom Menace, you could call this like the start of like the Jedi being more ignorant to the things that are going on around them, which lead to the great uprising of Palpatine to power and stuff. But I guess it just depends on what they decide to do with it for season 2.
And there's always been kind of, it's going to be kind of hard to explain. There's always been part of me that's kind of over the years now seeing all the content. And then that Yoda knew things were coming to an end for the Jedi. Like, he didn't just sit back and let it happen, but I think, to me, he kind of, as the time got closer, he realized there's going to be a transition here. I think something's going to happen. So even though he might have known things, I think he kept a lot to himself. And just kind of going like with the will of the Force anyway. Like he felt like it was the will of the Force. Hey, the Jedi's time is coming up. There's going to be a period of darkness. And then then there's going to be eventually a balance again. So that's kind of how I always felt. If you kind of understand what I mean, that he wasn't just being complacent, letting bad things happen, but like deep down, he knew their time was up. That these things were going to come to pass. And stuff.
Okay, that's an interesting way of thinking. I didn't even think about anything like that, but that would work really well for his character because he's always kind of alluded wiser than what he's already wise. But I always, when we see him in all these cases, he seems like he knows more that's going on behind the scenes. And so, so that I could see that being the case. Just kind of taking a step back and just letting things carry out as they need to.
Like he felt it was the will of the Force, hey, this is going to happen. There's going to be a change. It's just going to the way it is, and then it'll go back the other way. So.
Definitely be curious if they get a season 2, how they're going to portray just that interaction for sure. So we got, which episode was it that they mentioned this? I feel like it was episode 2, but I'm getting them mixed up again. Or, not again, I'm getting them mixed up just in general. So we learned that Osha and May were created using this, what do they call it?
Vergence
in the Force. What do you think about that? Because I've heard a lot of people arguing that kind of dilutes Anakin's story almost. I see 2 different sides of it to where it kind of does, but it doesn't.
To me, it kind of depends on where you go with it. Like they say, Plagueis could, create life or whatever. To me, and this might have just been coincidental, when Soul, that final episode when he was talking to Osha and May and the stranger sitting there, and he mentioned about them being created that way, to me it looked like the stranger took note of that. Oh really? That's something my master might be interested in. And how do we know, they do a second season, you might come to find out that maybe Plagueis was involved with those witches, and maybe he had he had a part in it. Maybe that's how, we don't know exactly how May ended up with the stranger or whatever that, but he might have, maybe Plagueis said, hey, this happened on this planet, go there, get here, we got a possible acolyte here out of the, so you don't know if until we know, that's what, you get disappointed by things, but that's why I always hesitate to jump and start back, because you don't know what the whole story is planned out. If you watch an episode of the show and you don't like it, that's your opinion, you don't like it, but sometimes things go a little slow. You got to see the bigger picture at the end. Like I said, watching this show, binge watching it, and seeing it all kind of as a movie is a lot better. I liked it anyway, but it made it even better. Better to me. So, and I know there's reasons they don't do that, but sometimes it makes you wonder for how much some of these episodes of these Star Wars shows get bashed because people see one episode and they just start trashing it off in one episode. It almost makes you wonder if they should just release it all at once. And I understand why they don't. If you release it all at once, where you can binge watch it and go all the way through it, and then form your opinion at the end. But money-wise and stuff, I realize why they don't. But it's too bad people are just so quick to bash without seeing the whole story first.
And I mean, sure, you can have criticisms, but to outright trash a project isn't necessarily that doesn't get us anywhere.
This is the worst thing ever, and you watch the first episode. Well, I can think of lots of shows and things I like after the first episode. I was kind of okay, and then by the time the end, it was like, wow, that was
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, like how many pilots out there you watch and just like, okay, where's this going? And then you watch maybe a season of it or something, and then you're like, oh, that's pretty shit.
give me the story, and then let me see it as a whole before I.
Yeah. No, I like that. But yeah, we'll have to see, because that would be a cool twist of things. Did we ever get confirmed? I think it's alluded to that Plagueis had a hand in the creation of Anakin, or we're supposed to think that, but that's not really
I think if I remember right, like it's been a while since I read those. They do like a I don't know, ceremony or something, if I recall right, and then they feel like something happened out there in the Force, but they weren't sure what or exactly who, where, what, but they knew something had happened. So, and I guess I feel I should have brushed up on some of it. Maybe that's why they didn't just automatically know where Shmi was with Anakin's, because something happened in the galaxy, but where did it happen?
Yeah.
You know what, and it had to be discovered.
Yeah, that makes sense. But that would be interesting to see that Osha and May were like the test, almost like a test phase with him to try and see if he can manipulate life to come out of the Force.
And I'm curious, the planet, the stranger, and they were on, they labeled it unknown planet. I'm assuming that it's a lot like the planet from the Plagueis novel where he killed his master at Tenebrous.
Yeah, Tenebrous.
So I wonder if that's the same planet. Maybe that'd be kind of a neat little toss back.
It'd be interesting to see if we got like a flashback of Tenebrous. Wasn't he a Bith?
Yes, that would be really cool. I'd like that. So.
Okay, so kind of a mute point, but I've seen it brought up, especially when Ki-Adi-Mundi was first introduced. That was like episode. Which episode was that? Was that 3 or 4? It was 3 or 4 because it might have been both.
I think it was 4. I think because the 5th one. Well, wait.
Well, 5th one was all action, wasn't it? That was the one.
Yeah, that was where that was all the action. I'm trying to remember. Then was it the 6th one? Was it after all the action and they realized that he lost the team? You remember where the communication?
Yeah, that's right.
The communication was broken, and when he was trying to communicate, was that after?
I think so. Yeah, because he was trying to escape, and then the communication was cut off.
Right. That then? Man, I just watched this yesterday.
It's funny how just everything like blends together, and then you forget what. But anyway, Monday was brought in, and I've seen people talking about how they weren't too big of a fan of the retcon of his age. To me, that was kind of a mute point. Yeah, it didn't really matter to me. When
you've been a fan as long as I have been, there's been so much stuff retcon that was no big deal to me.
Yeah, I mean, out of all,
I thought it was cool seeing him actually. Yeah. I mean, he's an alien species, and with they always come up, well, how long these people live. Where to me, it was kind of a neat little toss in.
Yeah. And if it wasn't actually fully established anyway in Legends, it just kind of makes sense to why not just tag a number?
Right.
That,
And I almost feel like maybe they did that on purpose because they knew to just to stir the pot a little bit when people would see him, like, he's the one that said, that they've been this thing for a millennium, and then he's right there. I think, as part of me almost, the writers and, produce stuff have to, they know all this stuff, and sometimes you wonder if they do stuff like that, just like how Foghorn Leghorn used to walk by and grab that dog and smack him with the board against her. If they do that just to get people riled up a little bit, so
yeah, I didn't mind seeing him. Like that was all fine.
Yeah, I was cool with that.
Yeah.
So.
And I think his species, I don't remember the name of his species, but I think isn't the reason why their head's so tall is because they have a second heart, like on the top of their head. I think I remember seeing the anatomy of them.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
So like to see them live like almost double or triple, because I know some people are like, well, he's human-ish, so him having a human-related lifespan kind of makes sense. But knowing he's got 2 hearts, I'd reckon him living like double or triple a human lifespan, that'd be okay if you were to even make that comparison.
I always go back to this. It's Star Wars side of it.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. It's cool, light swords. That's
it's like I know there are people upset about the fire and space thing. It's Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's entertainment. If anything, if you start picking at it like that. I mean, there's tons of stuff to pick. Just as long as I'm being entertained and I'm having fun, then
that's all you need. That's all you really need. Yeah.
Yeah, they can have fire and an ice cube. All I care, so.
Okay, so we talked a bit on Khmer. Is it Khmer?
Khmer, I believe.
I'm terrible with names. I've noticed as I've been reading a couple of Star Wars novels and like going through the names of like old Jedi Masters and stuff, and like I'm terrible with names. But Khmer, the Stranger, already mentioned stuff about him. I think it was cool that they brought Cortosis into live action.
Yes, I like that too. Right away when I saw that happen to the Jedi's blade in that battle, I was like, oh my goodness, they brought Cortosis. Yeah, that was cool. I like that a lot. Cool.
And I never thought I would see anybody go to headbutt a lightsaber.
Yeah, that whole episode 5, the fighting and stuff. And I honestly, some of my favorite Star Wars is as far as like fights with the lightsabers and stuff.
Yeah,
that was really good.
It was good action, and I was even surprised because it was in. It wasn't. No. Yeah, it was in that fight scene that later on in the episode they killed off two of the main-ish characters that were introduced to. I thought that was a good move.
And how they killed them was like, I was surprised to see them die, and then the way they died is like, whoa, that's pretty. But it's funny because when I first watched that episode for the first time, and they showed Osha kind of coming to. And then she trips on the one Jedi's dead body. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my goodness, they're not going to show us that battle. They're just going to show us the results of the battle, and we're not going to actually get the battle.
Yeah.
So for a second, I was actually kind of disappointed. I was like, wow, they're going to do this where you're not going to show us and then once I started seeing them fighting in the woods, I was like, oh, cool. And then I like that a lot.
Yeah, that was good. And like they kept the details of Cortosis accurate too, because I think in Legends it was established that Cortosis, while it can stop a lightsaber, force it to deactivate, it's very brittle. So, and I remember when the Stranger, Khmer, and Osha were in the cave, he was repairing the helmet because even in the battle it was fractured.
You could see it.
Yeah,
you could see it.
So that was cool to see. So yeah, overall, a pretty good character. The lightsaber he had was pretty cool, where he split that bottom half open, had like a mini saber.
Yeah, I forget what they call those now. I think it begins with an S, but is it like a Shoto?
Shinto or something like that? Yeah, Shoto, like one of those smaller like katana blades-ish kind of things.
Or similar too, because Ahsoka's got that.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a little bit different because hers doesn't connect to the other lightsaber, but. Kind of same concept.
I forgot she had a shorter saber at one point. Yeah, no, that's cool. I didn't write this down, but seeing the light whip in live action was kind of cool. I wish they would have used it a little bit more though, because they only had it for that one scene to flip back and that bug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like they're like, she has this cool weapon. This season we don't have a reason for her to use it. Oh wait, we could have one of those bugs come out and just kind of,
like a last minute toss.
Right, but I'd like to see more of it. And after we saw her with that, and then the scars on Khmer's back, right away I went to, there's a connection there. Those look like whip kind of, so maybe not, but to me it kind of,
it seems like
so
because it just, with straight storytelling and visual context, that's what I would link it to. I mean, I guess you could say it was from the bugs that carried them off, but that seems like a cheap kind of like toss away.
Yeah.
But
now, just a thought. They say in Attack of the Clones about the 20 Jedi that have left the Order. So does that make Osha and Khmer part of the 20 then?
Oh, interesting. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
And I hope not, because that to me it seems like all of a sudden you got like 3 within 100 years that just and I guess technically she didn't walk away. They just decided she wasn't old enough, and we don't know with Khmer yet how that whole thing goes down and stuff.
So I got to bring him up because I wasn't too big of a fan of him, but Basil, the little rodent guy that was walking around. I don't think I liked him too much. Okay. I would have been okay if they left him in a trash compactor.
Okay. Here, I like his design.
Yeah, design was great.
I liked some of the character, but then he did some really weird things, like on the ship, he disabled it when Soul took May back to the ship. You remember he got in there and
he just
then when Soul was getting ready to, it looked like he's getting ready to fire on May. Maybe he's getting ready to flip on a tractor beam or something, and he just I can kind of see. Well, if he thought Soul was going to do something that he wouldn't normally do and fire on, he was trying to keep him from making a mistake. Yeah. Then, in the heat of battle, hey, you're getting ready to make a mistake. I'm not going to let you do that. Okay, I can. But it just kind of seemed kind of weird. I kind of felt like we needed a little bit of an explanation for those things he did.
I would say so.
But there's things about him I thought it was kind of neat. Maybe overused a little bit. Maybe
I think a little bit. Yeah. The one scene where May's in the ship and he figures out that May's not OSHA, and he goes to confront her, and he does a little jig. That's the best way I can describe that. I was like, you could have shown something kind of cool where he kind of attacked her, as like, he's got kind of like a rodent embodiment, so why couldn't he have just like leaped on her and she like throw him off or something like that? But that I thought was kind of a little goofy. But overall character design, I thought he looked good.
Yeah. And then here's another one of those things where you can start getting real picky on. Okay, so they knew Soul could sense that Kanalka was out in that woods.
Yeah.
And they're Jedi, and they can sense each other. Why did you need a tracker to...
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to start nitpicking things, but overall, like I said, I like the design of it. Maybe overused a little bit would be...
For sure. But yeah, I'm with you too, like why... with the track, unless there was something about it that they needed one or thought they needed.
And I really don't see where he did anything where they needed to bring him in necessarily for that. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I don't know. They must have had their reasons, I guess. But if anything, he is the Ewok of this season. Just a fluffy character.
Well, that's what we needed. The next series, and I forget the name of Basil's species, but that's what we need. A series. That species versus the Ewoks, and an all-out war.
Just a big, territorial war on that. Yep.
The Yub war.
Attack of the Fuzzballs.
Book it. That's money right there.
I'd see it. I'd watch it. So if we get a season 2, which they have neither confirmed or denied, I think they're kind of just holding out to see what kind of happens in the months, however long after. If we get a season 2, what are things you definitely want to see or don't want to see?
Okay. I hope they do a season 2. The ending of it left me interested enough. I'd like to see at least one more season of it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the next season focus more on the dark side aspect of it. Like I thought this first season was going to be more dark side oriented, and I was kind of disappointed. That was one of my disappointments. It was when they did focus on those parts, were like when Quamir was talking to Ocean and stuff. I love that stuff. I thought that was really, really good. It was some of my favorite parts of it. But focus a little more on that. Maybe see what's going on with Plagueis and maybe more into what his whole plan is, and kind of go that route. Maybe even a little less Jedi going on. I mean, you're going to have a little bit, because somehow that if they do a second one, you're going to have Finestra track down, him and
for sure
Quamir, and have something there, and that could be interesting too. Does Plagueis let Quamir die, or is that what happens to him, and then he has to move on to Palpatine? So there's some interesting things there.
There's some good storytelling bits that you can get out of that.
Yeah, I'd like to see.
I think I saw somewhere that they were playing around with the idea of introducing a young Palpatine in a season 2. I don't know if I'd want to see that in a season 2. I think they got a story going right now that I'd like them to finish, because that in itself is a whole lot more that you can do its own thing. Like I feel like that's not something you tag along at the end of or at a second season for a show.
And I thought something else I'd like to see, because I thought we might get a little bit of this, because they mentioned how much she liked Legends and stuff. I thought we'd see a little more incorporated. See Khmer introduce Osha to Plagueis. This is my master, and then he give them like either both a lesson or something, and kind of go through the history of the Sith, and let's see some of those old Darths from Legends that we like. Let's see them in live action for the first time. Doesn't have to. It can just be a holocron flashback or just a flashback to split-second scenes of them doing something that maybe we're familiar with from the old Legends books. Just this Darth, and then this one, and this, and then kind of the lineage of it a little bit would be kind of neat. We kind of neat to see some of those guys in live action for the first time.
That would be. I feel like the show, especially when it was first announced in the trailers of it, was kind of put us in the perspective that we're going to see a lot of the dark side perspective, and I'd like them to definitely dig in if they get a second season.
Definitely,
because that would be good to see.
Definitely.
So that's all the bullet points that I got down. Anything you thought of or got, or anything that we missed? I think we covered just about everything.
Yeah, I think so.
Everything I could think of from the series.
Yeah.
So, okay, so moving on from the main portion of the episode, we got, I was able to look up some upcoming Star Wars projects that are worth noting for sure. First one I got written down is the Skeleton Crew TV series. It's slated, I think, for December 3rd, 2024 is when it's going to be coming out. We still haven't got a trailer. So at the point of recording, at the time of recording this episode, no trailer. So if this episode's out next week and we got a trailer, we haven't seen it yet. So, just based on what you heard, I'm going to pull up. They actually released some pictures that we can take a look at here.
I haven't seen these yet, I don't think so.
Yeah. So what are your... I feel like I haven't really gotten any idea of what it's about other than what I've seen on these pictures and stuff.
So, I'm kind of excited by this series just because I have no expectations for it.
Yeah.
So, okay, some of these I did see. The little... Ortolan, that's what Max Rebo.
Yeah, the Max Rebo guy.
I like him or her. I don't know. I guess I don't know if it's going to be male or female.
Hard to tell.
It'll be interesting to see how they handle the whole thing with the legs, because remember they've been portrayed as full with legs. But then when they show the prop from Jabba's palace back in the day, it actually didn't. It just had an arm. It didn't have any.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see. But I'm curious to see that. I've heard that supposedly, Jude Law's character, it's some weird like Jod Nawood or something like that.
Jod Nawood.
Yeah, that maybe he's like a former Jedi or he's Force sensitive or something. So, and this takes place during the Mandalorian, era time period. So I'm curious to see. It'll be kind of fun because I have no expectations for it. I'm just going to sit back and watch it, and if it's leans towards being more for the kids, that's fine. So you need Star Wars stuff for everybody. If it's more kiddie-like, then I'll enjoy it for what it is, and go with that. So
yeah, for sure. The nice part about Star Wars, especially what I've learned to do over the years, growing up in what is considered Legends now, you make it what it is for yourself.
Right.
There's all these stories out here that you could tell, but like Star Wars is what you make of it. So to me, I have my own headcanon of how I like to see it and how I like to look at it and observe it. It's going to be completely different than everyone else's. Yeah. But that's the fun part about it, I think.
And this might be heavily leaned towards kids, but there might be some really good, moments for adult fans in it. Like when Clone Wars first came out, it was just fun and okay to me. Honestly, when we went and saw the Clone Wars movie,
I remember that. Yeah,
I couldn't stand Ahsoka. I couldn't stand the whole Snips and Sky Guy thing. But then when you watch that whole series and you get to watch her grow up, and then even there's some definitely kiddie episodes in that. And the same thing for Rebels. There's something this is geared towards kids. But if you watch it and stick with it, there's some really good Star Wars in there. Yeah. Those last few episodes of the Clone Wars series there, that final episodes of that season 7, some of my favorite Star Wars. The music in that and everything just so good. Rebels, with what happened with Kanan and all that.
Yeah.
So good. So
and
good.
The scene with Obi-Wan and Maul for the last time. Right. The storytelling and that was really good.
Yep. Although I wish they would have, hindsight, if they would have known they was going to do a Kenobi live action.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that scene somewhere in the live action. But
even if it was a tag along, just like, how long is that scene? Like less than 10 minutes. If they would have just been like, hey, we got Ewan McGregor here. We can get. Who's the guy who plays Maul usually?
Ray Park.
We can bring him in there because I know he's still involved in some Star Wars stuff. And just do it.
Yeah.
Just a quick one-off, just do it. That would have been cool. Okay, so we got this one. I do really like the... Neil is the character's name.
Okay, so it's probably...
And I remember for the... what was Max Rebo's species again? It was a...
They're Ortolans, aren't they?
Ortolans.
If I'm pronouncing it right.
I remember the action figure, when you take him out of his piano, he's got little stubby elephant legs. So I wonder if they'll kind of keep that theme.
Yeah, or see, like I said, the prop of him from Return of the Jedi, he actually didn't have legs. He was just kind of like a Sebulba looking thing.
With the legs propped up. Yeah. So let's see, we got... this picture of Jude Law just kind of looking off. Maybe some... Oh, actually, isn't that the Jabba's Palace entrance droid? The one like scans the faces? We saw that.
Oh, yeah. I forgot what they call it. Yeah. Just as a glance, this picture here of him makes me think of that one outfit for Star Killer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I played the crap out of those games.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. I can't... But yeah, I see exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I forget what it's tired, but yeah, it makes the way his hair is and everything kind of makes me think maybe they did that as like a little Easter egg.
Like a little nod to it. Yeah, that'd be cool. I can't remember. I think you might have mentioned this to me, but I think the way that they're going about this series is that it's supposed to be kind of like Stranger Things-esque.
Yeah, I heard Stranger Things in space, and then like it ties back to like E.T., like elements of... in the 80s, it always seemed like in the movies that kids in it, there's always like a bicycle adventure. When we was kids, we didn't have your phones and all that stuff. Our bicycles were our adventure. So kind of one of those. Yeah. Leaning towards one of those.
It'd be interesting to see the stories that they got there.
And then I guess the pirate, the one pirate from The Mandalorian, was it Vidane or something like that?
The really green, bushy guy?
No, not that, not him. The one guy that was like fighting for him. I think he's in this series too. So.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, the Moss Man look-alike. We don't want him back.
Yeah. That's a whole nother subject there.
You're right there with the kind of the bicycle-esque kind of storytelling right there.
And then even got the streamers and the handlebar there. So
yeah, nice. It should be interesting. I'm curious to what the stories they're going to tell. Still can't see the Ortolan's feet there, so
or maybe it makes you wonder if they go with where these are really like it's instead of its hands is like its feet. Is maybe he's got like robotic legs where he sits like on a pedestal and has robotic. That'd be kind of a neat little.
Yeah.
There was that guy in the special editions for A New Hope in the Cantina, and the action figure of him. If you remember, you take off his pants would pop off, and he's like a really short guy, but he had robotic legs. So maybe it might end up being Ketwall. I think his name was Ketwall. Maybe
Ketwall. I think that sounds about right.
But maybe that'd be kind of interesting how they would.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see what direction they take on that. Let's see what else we got here. So we got them huddled around. Oh yeah, isn't this? They got a droid companion. I think is what they
looks
mentioned.
Like some kind of droid.
Interesting. And then we got... Oh, that's fun. It's like they got a little caddy for their bikes.
Yeah.
So I wonder... I think didn't we see that kind of cybernetic thing over the eyes in the Book of Boba Fett with those street games?
I was just getting ready to bring that up. As long as this girl isn't one of those mods.
Yeah.
And hopefully their speeder bike bicycle things go faster than the ones that those mods have, because for some reason they only had one gear. But anyway, that's a different story for a different day.
For sure. I hope so. At least in this picture, it looks like they're moving fast enough.
Yeah, her hair is kind of blowing the...
Goodness, yeah, I do. Yeah, that's another scene to talk about at a later time. So I think that's all the pictures we got from that.
But yeah, like I said, I have no expectations for that. I'm just going in. Let's have fun with it and see what happens with it. So
I think that sounds.
It might really knock our socks off and might be really, really. It'll be interesting how it ties in with the Mandalorian, and then if these characters have anything to do with that Mandalorian movie too.
Oh yeah,
how everything's supposed to come together. So.
For sure. Curious to see. So excited. Star Wars things to get excited about and see what they got. All right. So from the article that I read, we have Andor Season 2 slated for 2025. But potentially they have something going on. They might have a 2024, late 2024 release, or maybe just a trailer, I would hope.
I bet we'll get a trailer maybe towards the end of the year as far as release, with Skeleton Crew being there in December. I think Andor will be late in the winter or maybe early spring. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah,
that was
good. The first season of that was pretty good. I hear a lot of people say it was slow, but if you take the time and watch it, go through it, it's a good watch. Mm-hmm. It's a really good watch.
The episodes where they're in the prison and all that stuff, and then Luthen's speech and stuff. There's lots of good moments in that. Yeah, if you haven't watched that, or just watched the first episode or two and thought this is too slow or whatever, give it a chance, because it does really.
And I love the way they framed like the Empire in that too. Mm-hmm. Like very authoritarian, kind of like just the feel of it was really good. It was really good.
Yeah.
Everything.
And that goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Star Wars needs to have shows for everybody. That one was a little more serious and and everything like that. That was perfect. Now give me some lightheartedness over here and a lot of action over here, and then just the variety. I love the variety.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So I saw that there's a season 2 of Ahsoka supposedly in development. I say parentheses in development because it feels like anything that they release or say, hey, we're working on this, might get canned.
I'll believe it when I'm watching it.
Because I know recently they said that Lando, either movie or spin-off series, was canned, but I think that was just going to happen anyway.
Did that get canned, or did they move it to another? I think now it might be a single. Well, at least the last I heard, it was going to be like a single, standalone movie.
It might. Last I saw anything, they were saying it was canned, but it still might be on the slate.
Who knows? Because wasn't the Rogue Squadron movie canned, and then that lady that was making that said it's back on the table again.
It's just.
But like I said, I'll believe it's happening when I'm either in the theater or on my couch watching it.
Yeah.
For the first time.
Kind of a good way to go about it as of late. So then we got Jon Favreau's The Mandalorian and Grogu movie, and they have a date, from what I saw, May 22 of 2026. So that'll be interesting, as you said, with the Skeleton Crew, if they decide to tie them in there. I'm wondering what kind of... Because the last season of The Mandalorian, they kind of just, left them like, hey, their story's done, and now we're going to tell other stories, so I'm wondering what the movie's going to be kind of centered around.
And then it'll be curious, because Ahsoka is in that time period too. Are you going to get season 2 of Ahsoka before that Mandalorian movie? And then I saw a thing earlier where they're saying they want 2 Star Wars movies in 2026. One in May and then one in December. And then a third one already in 2027. Like I said, I'll believe it when I'm sitting there watching. I know they started
100%.
working on the Mandalorian Grogu movie, which I hope that's not the title of it. I hope they come up with something a little bit better than that. But if I recall, this, that's right around Memorial Day 2026. Mm-hmm. Right around then and right around Christmas time, you got some big Marvel movies coming out, I think. And then I think, is there an Avatar movie coming out there in 20? So
there might be.
So these 2 movies that they do in 2026 are going to have some pretty stiff box office, competition with, how's that going to work? I feel like in the theater, there's been, for like the average people, there's been some Star Wars fatigue and stuff.
Yeah.
If these other brands, if their movies are really hitting good, are these just going to kind of fall to the wayside? I mean, they answer that. Make a darn good movie. Make it good.
Yeah, just make it good.
So right. So sometimes I worry now. They're like, it says Star Wars on it, so people are going to watch it, and it's, just it says Star Wars, and, it's like, no, you got
you got to actually put forth effort
right.
behind it to make good legacy content, even, because like you could watch it now and then just disregard it and then never touch it again. Then like, from a legacy standpoint, how does that look? I mean, there's plenty of legend stuff that's like, we read it, we saw it, and it's just like, yeah, we won't touch back on that, but like, I would want, as a creative, to make good content that people would want to go back and watch, 20 years or so. I mean, Star Wars is what? Getting close to aren't we getting close to like a 50-year celebration here soon? Yeah. So like
2027. Yeah.
And we're still watching The New Hope. So like,
right.
It's...
And this, I watch these movies and shows probably 10 times as much as in order. Yeah. They're my background noise. If I'm doing something, working on something else, I've got them on, and there's some of them. I wish there was a way I could look in my history of watching these things to see how many times I've watched certain ones.
Yeah.
To see, I mean, I know right off the top of my head the ones I lean towards the most, but it would be kind of neat to see. Well, honestly, I know which one would be on the bottom of my list, but that's another topic for another time. But yeah, it would be just kind of interesting to see the balance of where my focus is most of the time.
It's definitely the Ewok spin-off movies. Those old, what's it called? The Ewok Adventure movie?
Now, one of my favorite Star Wars characters is from that caravan. Chocka the Ewok. Hey, Hasbro, I've wanted a figure of him ever since then. I just love that little guy.
He's a fun guy. But wasn't he the only one? Wasn't the only one that bit the dust?
He did die, yeah. That was sad, yeah, but yeah, I love that guy. He's one of my favorite characters, really. So
I liked him. From last I remember, it's been a while since I've watched that movies, but I remember liking him. So.
Now the first one is kind of neat. The second one, where when Wicket starts speaking English and stuff like that, there's some neat things in that movie. The ending of that's really, really sad.
Yeah.
but yeah, the second one, there's some stuff in there. It's like, okay, but
yeah. Okay, so let's see. We did the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. So Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie. I remember you mentioning that, and I saw it in the article that I saw. Supposedly he's still got a movie in development.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Exactly. I don't know what the topic would be for that or whatever. So who knows? Then we got, I don't remember. This is the first time seeing his name, but James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie, and I don't remember ever seeing that. And this article might have just pulled it out of thin air 100%, but that'd be an interesting topic to explore.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, from what I've heard of what the concept was, it's supposed to be like the origins of like the first Jedi and all that. Could be really, really neat. Mm-hmm. You have to be very careful how you do that story.
100%.
I mean, that's... I wouldn't want to make that movie because that's going to be heavily critiqued on the origin of it and how that's handled. That's to me, that's a big responsibility. I mean, that's right up there with if somebody, they said, "Hey, you're doing a Yoda origin movie." I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot lightsaber because
there's a lot weighing on that.
Right? Yeah. That's you have to hit a home run, or you'll be forever hated.
Yeah, 100%.
Forever hated.
100%. Yeah, that's curious if that continues to go through. And then we have Dave Filoni's Mandoverse New Republic movie. Wasn't this one originally scrapped because of all the? Or am I thinking of a different?
No, you're thinking of Rangers of the New Republic. It was going to be
That was a spinoff with Cara Dune. Before all that stuff came out.
Yeah. This one, I would think that one would probably be coming. It makes you wonder where the whole Thrawn thing is going to fit in.
Yeah.
With these, because Mandalorian Grogu is going to be taking. I guess it depends on where it falls. Is that Mandalorian Grogu movie before Ahsoka, when Thrawn gets back? Where do the pieces fall?
Yeah,
in the time. Yeah. In the timeline with that.
It'll be interesting to see like the grander story if they're looking to merge everything together to see how that.
I'm looking forward to if it's the New Republic movie or when they have like the big final engagement with Thrawn and all that. I got high hopes for all that stuff. My one problem I have, I don't know how you handle this, is if you have that big of a galactic event at that time period, where's Han? How do you address Han, Luke, and Leia not being involved with it?
Yeah.
You have to come up with a clever way, whether you mention, hey, there's threats on two fronts, Han, Luke, and Leia are leading the charge on dealing with this one, we're dealing with this one. You can name drop them. You could even have maybe communications with them, maybe do a hologram with them or stuff. Although, you know, they're getting better at that deep fake stuff. I heard one time they decided they just didn't want to go that route anymore and kind of steer clear of that. To me, you got to do a little something.
Absolutely, because you can't just think that they didn't know.
Yeah, how big they were, how big of the character they are in this time period. How you just discard them off to the. Oh, I'm sorry, they're on break right now.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they go about that for sure. Okay. All right, well, that's all the bullet points that I got on upcoming Star Wars projects. I don't think there's anything. Have you heard anything else that I haven't mentioned? Of course, there's I just now remembered there's this episode should be out before it releases because it's releasing in the 30th of August. But a new Star Wars game, Star Wars Outlaws, should be coming out, and that takes place. The story of that takes place in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It looks interesting from the gameplay footage that I've seen of it. I'll probably end up playing it.
Yeah, I don't game much anymore. Some of the footage I've seen of it looked good. I've heard opinions both ways on it, but it looks interesting and stuff. So one of these days I'll have to get with modern times, get a modern gaming system and play some of these games because they do look interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order were great. They were awesome. I enjoyed those thoroughly. So yeah, definitely. If you haven't played new Star Wars games, get into it. Be wary of Outlaws. I've seen both sides of the things, but supposedly it looks really nice. It looks really good, so we'll see. Supposedly, we'll have appearances from Lando and Hondo in it as additional stories.
I think I even heard that Kiro's in it.
I think in a game, in some trailer or video I saw, I remember seeing Kira in it because you get to interact with all the different syndicates and criminal empires around, and Kira's with. Crimson Dawn.
Crimson Dawn, yeah.
So
that leads back to Solo, and that's another topic for another time.
Another topic for another time. Well, this is going to wrap things up for this episode. If you liked it, please consider liking us down below, and to keep up to date with us, please consider subscribing and following us on Instagram. And until next time, may the Force be with you.